Welcome back to Too Much Future, the show where we play the Fallout games and we talk about them. I'm Cameron, and with me, as always, is Michael.
Hi.
We finished Fallout 4.
Mm-hmm.
We defeated that cursed itty-bitty babison.
Well, in your case, I guess in a way he was defeated.
He was defeated by the March of Time itself,
Right.
and the frailty of the human body. Oh my god, that got me. That's funny. He was gotten, our itty bitty babison was gotten, as we all are eventually, by entropy itself, by the unnamed entropic process that is unspeakable in the video game realm.
This incurable disease, incurable by even like the most advanced scientific standards in the Fallout continuity, like unbroken from pre-war technology and led by the most brilliant engineers available.
Mm-hmm. They could have, think about this. It's really one of those like teleporter, what do you call it? Like paradoxes, whatever they're called. These like Star Trek horseshit ideas. Like it evaporates you and then reconstitutes you somewhere else.
Yeah.
You don't think they could have because we're teleporting everywhere with the Institute in this game, right? Why not deconstitute yourself and reconstitute yourself without the unnamed uncurable disease? Have you thought about that?
Just the incurable disease is left behind and it like
Right.
falls to the ground
Exactly.
gently like ash.
Yeah, exactly. I look, I'm just saying. I'm just coming up with some cool ideas about the way this could have gone and the way it didn't go.
Uh-huh.
That's all I'm saying. Well, we finished the game. I nuked the greater Boston area. And everyone's still cool with that. They think that's fine.
Yeah.
Or so we think.
So we think.
Or so we think. We played, this episode is about the, what is it called? Automatron. Yeah, Automatron. Why? Why is it called that?
I mean, I think when did Near Automata come out? Were they trying to avoid...
They could have just called it robots. Nier
been shortly
comes
after,
out a year later.
Yeah. No, I imagine it was probably like they could have gone with like Automaton, but they're like, no, it needs to be the, ray gun gothic Fallout kind of thing. And so the R gets added.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not that. It's the robot DLC. In fact, on the little thing for it, the little poster for it, it says, robots, robots, and more robots. Even build your own. Automatron. That's fun.
Mm-hmm.
It is robots, robots, robots. More robots. That's the name of my new hot dog emporium.
Right.
Robots, 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 robots.
Yep, this is, well, it is a slight offering, I guess, is what we can say.
Yes, it is, I think, 4 quests. And it's one quest chain, but it's like 4 individual little doots. 4 individual little quests. It cost $10. And in my play, that equated to about $5 an hour. It took, because is that where it took? I can tell you exactly how long it took me, but I think it took me about 2 hours to do.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah, something like that.
Let's see here. All details of the button. 2 hours, 26 minutes.
Yeah,
So
I would...
2.5 hours.
Yeah, about that. Mm-hmm.
And it begins with a caravan distress call, as all great outings do.
Mm-hmm. That's true, right? That's the way of Fallout DLC, is that there is a caravan distress call.
Yeah, someone just calls you on the telephone and tells you what to do.
Uh-huh.
Hey, would you do you mind going and doing a job for me?
How did this work out for you? Because I accidentally cleared out the inciting little, like, meet and greet here at one point while just, like, bebopping through the wasteland.
I've never accidentally completed anything in a Fallout game. I think that should be clear at this point. The difference in our play is I've never accidentally done a single thing in one of these games. Cue 15 examples of me saying I accidentally did something. But I just went to the location, and like every other location in the game, when I got there, synthetic human beings were firing directly into the sky at a hovering vertibird that flew around in circles around them until they exploded it.
I saw some of this too.
Yeah, and so it's just like, I'm just wandering up, and it's like all these explosions, and I was like, oh yeah, because the caravan distress call is coming from someone named something. Do you have it written down in front of you?
No, I don't. I didn't even listen to it, right? Because like I said, I accidentally cleared all of this out. I like wandered into this at another point and like did all this, and I don't even remember how long ago it was.
It is from a guy named Jackson.
Okay.
Where we're going.
Yeah.
Gonna mess around. As the bard once said.
Yes.
But Jackson says, this is an emergency broadcast. Our caravan's under attack by hostile robots. It needs some serious help. We're just needs of Watts Consumer Electronics. If anyone in the vicinity can come help, now's the time. Ada, loop this message. And then a robot goes, yes, sir. Robot. So I get there and I see all these, like, other kinds of robot. One of the many types of robot I've seen in the world. Just firing at this vertibird, and was like, uh-oh, this must be the thing. And so I'm doing all this combat. And then other weirder robots are there. And they start shooting my ass with, like, magic missiles and stuff. They're just getting me, okay? And then there's this other weird robot, and it's like, talk to the robot. And it walks back toward the vertibird and starts blitzing that thing out of the sky. Psoo, 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 psoo. And there are all these, like, nuclear explosions that happen, and then the vertibird falls out of the sky. I just stood there for a long time and just watched things occur. I was also shot with a Gatling laser many times.
I do like that Bethesda's attempt to, I think, emulate sort of I don't know what you want to call this, but the world design that was on display in New Vegas, where they were just kind of, like patrols of Caesar's Legion or the NCR wandering around, and occasionally they would like run into each other, or like, the adventure that I had where I accidentally reactivated a Caesar's Legion patrol that I had escaped earlier and then like diverted my game entirely.
Kind of emergent stuff.
Yeah. There's something interesting about how often for this game, the attempt to mimic that boils down to you walk into a place and see a bunch of people just shooting at a vertibird.
Sometimes you just see it.
Like, that's just what it comes down to.
It's good.
Yeah, I accidentally, like, as I said, wandered through here and, like, fought all these robots earlier, and then I talked to the robot that you just mentioned, and I was like, oops, this is DLC. I shouldn't be doing this now, and so I left it alone, and then I came back here and talked to this robot after all the stuff that you said happened for me way, way, way back in the past.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool to kill those robots, broadly. And then I talked to Robot, and Robot named Ada. What Robot tell you?
She is like, oh no, my friends were killed. So this was like a caravan of like he was like a robot merchant, this Jackson guy, or like, robot specialist, whatever. There were a couple
of adventure of a sort.
Yes, right, because Ada, she mentions that she's, and you can tell immediately, right? She's a highly customized Assaultron, I think is the name of the baseline robot.
Yeah, she says that, because you could be like, what kind of robot are you? Because there's only 11 robot types or whatever, right? Like, the number of robots in the world of Fallout is fewer than the number of toasters you can purchase on the toaster aisle, the appliance aisle in Walmart. You know what I mean? Like, it's a deeply atrophied robot creation universe.
Well, it's because there's only the one company. They need more capitalism. They need some competition in there.
I bet Poseidon tried to make a robot. And Robco said, no, don't do it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, anyway, so you see this rootin' tootin' robot here. What'd she tell you?
She explains that she's, this customized Assaultron unit. Her name is Ada. She's like blue, and she's got like different legs. This is important because later on, when she's following you around, she like waddles everywhere, and it's rather endearing. But she explains that, if I'm remembering this correctly, because I played this a while ago, Jackson and his company, because it wasn't just her, that was Jackson, maybe I think a couple other humans, and then some other customized robots. They were leaving the Commonwealth because they were getting attacked by either robots or raiders. I'm thinking these robots, like we learn all of a sudden that these like wandering robots are really a problem here in the Commonwealth, even though I don't understand like why that's unusual, because it does feel like, from Eleanor's perspective, yeah, like maybe 80% of my problems in this world come down to wandering robots. Like that seems to be kind of the order of the day.
Right.
But these robots in particular are bad.
I think you have to ask, is that happening everywhere, though? Like, if you travel to, the DC wasteland today, will it also be full of marauding robots? And I think the answer that is implied here is no, it will not.
Right.
Like, Ohio is not full of murderous robots.
We don't know what's going on in Ohio.
We have no one's ever asked. No one thought about it. These coastal elite factions... they won't deign to fly their airship to Ohio. Mm-hmm. They won't even call it flyover country.
Yeah, so Ada's like, yeah, we have these robots. They're a huge problem. This is maybe one of the other endearing things about Ada, is that Ada essentially, like, here is embarking on a revenge quest with you. Yeah. But is not really saying that. And at some point, either in this conversation or in a later one, you get to ask her, like, pretty directly, like, you just want revenge, right, on whoever's making these robots. And she's like, well, she does the chat GPT thing, right? She's like, oh, well, as a large language model, I cannot have desires for revenge. However...
What do you want me to say, human?
Yeah, so she explains that... these robots they're like emanating from some sort of source. Like she wants you to go to a factory, is that right? Like there's like a factory where she knows other robots either are or where they're coming from, in order to find some sort of like transponder device. And so you do that, and you do basically versions of that a couple more times, and then the DLC ends.
Yeah, she wants you to go to... oh gosh, what is it called? Oh my god, I got
a General Atomics factory.
General Atomics, that's right. I don't, we were joking about the money to time ratio here, which is like whatever, right? Like it took a bunch of human hours to make the thing, and you can complete it pretty quickly. But there's some pretty cool things within it. I actually think this DLC is perfectly okay, even though we're making jokes about it, but. Like, you're exactly correct, where it's like, you talk to a robot, and then you go do a thing, and you talk to the robot, and you go do that same thing again, and you talk to a robot, and you do the same thing a third time. And then you go to a dungeon, and you complete the dungeon. There's not a huge amount of just, like, straight-up stuff here, but I do like what shows up, because this, basically, the DLC adds, like, a whole separate subsystem to the game.
Right.
Which is... robot crafting.
Right, and that's the real ad here, I think, for the DLC, right? So whether or not you think this is worth or was worth your $10 back in the day probably depends on how much joy you got out of the ability to finally make your own little robot sentries for your settlements.
It really does put a lot of pressure, I think, on the power armor customization stuff. There's not a single thing in here, because, I looked at all the power armor customization, I was like, wowee, gee whiz, this is cool. It would be really cool if I didn't have to dump, like, a huge amount of resources into learning how to do all this, right? Like, if I could just build these things if I go find the resources to do them. Which, by the way, if you're making the system in a game, that's what you should do. It should be about putting the resources and time in to go in and finding the thing, not into dumping XP, going and having to grind and dump XP into the system that unlocks it. That is just so terrible. And if you want to make special stuff to do it, just create special, what do you call them? Like blueprints that you can only get in deep and hard dungeons, right? Like reward effort, don't reward time sink. IMO personally. I didn't make this game. So who am I? Just some jackass. But the thing that's really interesting to me, I think, about it is like, the power armor stuff I looked at, the power armor customization I looked at, and I was like, oh, shit. Uh-oh. Like, I guess I'm not doing any of this. And this I looked at and I thought, ooh, what level up do I have to do in order to do more of this? Because I think it's cool. So you go and, like you said, you and Ada, you get together, you dig 2 graves, you go on this revenge quest, Ayo, all that stuff. And then you have to go into a Robco facility? Is that right?
No, it's a General Atomics factory.
Oh, General Atomics, sorry.
And you end up, she's like, there's some sort of, special robot that is got some sort of transponder on it or whatever that she can detect through robot magic. And this turns out to be a robo-brain, which is introed as, a kind of unusual thing, which throws me for a loop for a moment, because I'm like, this is Fallout. There's robo-brains all over. I've killed 1 billion of these guys. What are we talking about? These strange new robots of the robo-brain, and then you realize, in my case, I realized, oh, wait, I don't think I have seen a single robo-brain throughout the entire mainline game. So this is, a classic Fallout enemy that suddenly shows up here. And, to your earlier point about, where are you? Apparently these things weren't that common in the Commonwealth up until now, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. If I just maybe didn't forget other robo-brains that I'd seen, this is kind of a neat way for this to come back.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. And the one, remember we saw the super armored one in Fallout 3. The one that was we couldn't kill, we had to run away from and all that stuff. And in as Resident Evil Nemesis style. So we had to do that in that game, and in the other ones it's always deep in those big facilities, the Poseidon facility and stuff like that. So actually I really like this. I was like, oh yeah. And so this whole DLC is actually tied up with the Robo-Brains in a pretty cool way, I think. And it also kind of explains too, we'll talk about it I guess in a minute, but why your little bitty baby son didn't just put himself in a robo-brain.
Yeah.
You could. But he didn't.
No. He could have just Nick Valentine himself. But then I realized if he had done that, then he would have made himself a synth. And then the entire Order of the Institute would have imploded.
Yes. It is in fact the problem.
Uh-huh.
It's a real Pinocchio issue, right?
They actually figured out a way to transfer consciousness more or less seamlessly from a flesh body to a robot body, but their prejudice disallows them from understanding it.
Yeah, you were making fun of it before. Now, don't you think it's elegant and clever?
Oh my god.
How about
Fallout
that?
4 explained.
Yeah, you have been owned by the powers of the thing. Anyway, so you go to this facility, you find the Robo-Brain. You beat up the Robo-Brain, and I found most of these robot fights pretty hard. Not all of them were hard, but most of them are difficult because some of for Tonk specifically, because they are set up in areas where they often have turrets covering them.
Yeah.
And those turrets are upstairs or you got to take this kind of labyrinthine route. And so sometimes I'd had to just pull out whatever gun I had and try to shoot the turrets and then go in with my stompy punchy deal. Also, I spent a point, an upgrade point on the charge. If you wear power armor and you sprint into something, you can run into stuff and knock it down and make it ragdoll. It doesn't work on anything.
Oh, damn.
It only works on regular ass human beings.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it's not. Well, it would have been cool, and maybe it'll be cool in the future where I'm not playing the robot DLC. So maybe we'll be able to go a different way with it. But went in there, did that, and as you were talking about, Ada says, "Hey, I found this basically not sequencer, but like geographic GPS system that'll allow Ada to ping back to where this nefarious enemy who's making robots, where they live. And it's pretty cool because all the robots you fight, they do look like they're just kind of like thrown together. They're like a chassis with like random pieces on them. And each time you kill one, they have like random robot pieces on them, so you can pick those up. And I didn't pick a lot up at the beginning because I was like, why would I need an Assaultron chassis?
Right.
Like, what is that for? Who cares? And so I left it on the ground like a fool, because after you kill the Robo Brain, and after Ada says, hey, I can use this GPS, Ada says, I'm going to teach you how to make robots.
Mm-hmm.
And then the world opens up to you. What did you do when you could now make robots? You can use these chassis and you can, like, what do you call it? Build new pieces. There's all these like schematics and things. Did you do any of this stuff?
No. I looked at it and I was like, this is neat. This looks cool. And like you were talking about, I think the designs of the robots for this DLC are really cool. Like, they add some nice variety, one, to kind of the general Fallout deal, as you said. The very sleek retro future robots. Sleek is not exactly the right word, but like very, I guess, visibly, right, retro future robots.
The robots of Fallout generally have very clean and clear silhouettes to them.
Yes.
They are all very different, and they do have that, exactly what you're saying, that kind of retro future, could be on a magazine in the 1950s kind of look to them.
Right. And so these robots, because they're made out of, and you can see them, right? When you see them, you can see they're like mixing the silhouettes. Like, they are made out of pieces of the other types of robots, plus in some cases other random junk. And the effect is really nice. They look different while still seeming like they're of the world. And I was impressed by that. And I was like, it's nice that you can then build these things yourself for your little settlements if that's your deal. But, I'm not really touching the settlements. It's not what I'm interested in. But I will, acknowledge it. Like, I think this is pretty cool, but I don't know how actually, if there's any value to it or anything like that.
Well, it makes the settlements look like clown times, just straight up. Mm-hmm. Like, the depth of customizing your little robot is cool. Like, there's just so many different like chassis and like arm. They have forward armor and back armor. If they have arms, they have arm armor. They got foot armor. You can change their stuff. So I like immediately.
Robot's foot armor.
Yep. Is this your robotfootarmor.jpg? You've been emailing that thing around?
Yeah. It's a different account.
Well, the first thing I did for Ada is I was like, what are the the Mr. Handy, Mr. Gutsy, their little like rocket they ride around on. Mm-hmm. Ada got a rocket immediately.
Oh,
I was like, let's do it, Ada. You get a rocket. And I was like, oh, you get a better head. Like put armor on her face. And I was like, you get different guns. So I think she's got I picked up from some enemy like a thing that just shoots electric bolts that bounce from person to person. She's got that. She's got just a huge saw blade. And so she just uppercuts people with a saw blade.
Uh-huh.
She's ripping ass across the wasteland. It's cool. So we do that. And then she says, now will you please complete the same mission 2 more times?
Mm-hmm.
That's my, I'm pretty close to Dr. Sweet Chat right now.
A little bit. Yeah, you have to get like 2 other Robo Brains because she needs 2 more transponders to triangulate and find like the actual source of the robots. And so you go do that. The only thing that was interesting in that case for me is that I think the third one, maybe one or both of these are Radiant. But the third one for me like spawned in Boston, like along the river. And, I went to kill it. And it like ran away and it like got up into the hills. Like it was surrounded by other robots that I took out. And then I was like, what the hell is going on? And it had just like, these are, big tank tread lumbering robots. And it had gotten like all the way up this hill, like into the woods and was fighting some raiders up there.
Cool. Yeah, you can, because that's the thing that's added here is like a massive tank tread is possible now. Mm-hmm. That is like feet, or whatever, legs. Things that don't have arms can be given arms, which is cool. Things with arms can be, and I got a good story about that. But yeah, I'm looking actually to see if any of these are radiant. One is, so let's see. A new threat is the one we just talked about. So there's headhunting. Oh yeah, so there's one in the middle that must be radiant. And it is the one, yeah, I had that one, and it was like way off on the coastline for some reason. And I literally did not see it like coming. I was just walking. I was like, oh, we're definitely going in a building, right? And so I'm just bebopping along, walking my way. And then there's this massive, like, straight up Assaultron with tank legs that's just shooting me with a Gatling laser immediately. And so it was pretty rough and tumble, but I got through it. And then we get the mission Headhunting, which is to get the last Robo-Brain, Jezebel.
Yes, I forgot.
I like this quest a lot.
It's pretty neat. So this is the third Robo-Brain is being held in a raider compound that is... The raiders are a new faction for this DLC. They're called the Rust Devils, which I didn't know they were from this DLC, because I've been fighting them this entire time. Either they just spawn automatically in various places in the world because the DLC is there, or when I took out that attack on the caravan earlier, it like spawned them in the world. So I've actually been fighting them. I remember however many episodes ago I was playing for it, and I encountered a bunch of Rust Devils, and I was like, who the hell are these guys? Where did they come from? And I just thought that, like, they had given, like, it was like New Vegas with the jackals and the snakes or whatever.
Right.
But no, it's this is kind of like the big actual intro to the Rust Devils, because they are a raider faction that is specifically focused on capturing robots, stripping them from parts, and then building their own robots.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Like,
it's extremely cool. We've talked before about raiders being orcs and goblins.
Yes.
Were you worried? I let me say it this way. I've been concerned, and maybe you share my concern, that these orcs and goblins weren't, how do you say, goblin-y enough. And I thought they might need to make their own goblins, and then everyone would kind of look like a goblin together.
Uh-huh.
Do you think that the Dirt Devils, Rust Devils, whatever they're called, do you think that they have successfully goblinized themselves?
I think so, right? I think this is what all the raiders... frankly, I understand why it's not in here, right? Because this is like a whole new mechanical system, all these new art assets, blah, 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 blah. I am actually kind of surprised that we haven't seen more Fallout content that is about people making new uses of old world technology. That happens once in a while, but like seeing it done here with these raiders, it's like it's such a natural progression of things, right? It's like, oh, okay, right, we have a bunch of raiders who are hanging out, there's all this old technology around, and you're going to get like the raider factions who specialize in their little goblin-y techno blood sport.
Let me ask you a question here that you have just raised for me, which I find horrifying to even contemplate, but which is appropriate. You ready?
Okay.
Please name any factions in all of Fallout that have made new forms of culture after the bombs fell.
The Boomers?
That's true. The Boomers, they did do that. Okay. I mean, the Rust Devils, I'll give you that.
Yeah,
one.
the Rust Devils, I guess.
I mean,
the thing is, like, this does happen, and it almost only happens in vaults.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, I mean, you got a 50-50 shot of just being like a 1950s greaser, though.
Right.
You gotta remember. That's also a place of deep conservatism.
Right.
Maybe the Children of the Atom.
Yeah, Children of the Atom. And sort of, I mean, technically whatever's going on with, quote-unquote, tribals.
Yeah, but not really new.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
The whole
it's presented
as
regression, right.
Right. Same thing with the cons, right? Their whole thing is throwback. They even tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
There's that other guy with the gun, and he's doing Mormonism or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's like, why isn't it that when I'm playing this game, particularly this one, when like there's such an emphasis on power armor being basically everywhere and accessible, why aren't there farmers out there who have customized their power armor into like farming equipment? Like, why aren't they hauling plows with this stuff? I
don't know. That's what I need. It makes me mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Rust Devils are basically, at the avant-garde of human development.
Right.
Vis-a-vis what cultural formations are possible after the bombs have fallen. And so you go in their house and like all of their robots have spiky armor on them.
Yeah. Yeah, they want their robots to look scary, right? That's another thing that becomes very clear is that they know like what they are, and they're like, we want our robots to look like badass heavy metal albums.
Yeah, me too. It really is Mad Maxified.
Yeah. So you like fight through a whole bunch of these and eventually find Jezebel, who was a robo-brain that they captured and partly disassembled. And now she's stuck here, and she's extremely mean to you and them and everyone. And it turns out that the... Oh, what was that?
Did you fight her body?
I don't know if I saw her body.
I don't know if it automatically attacks you or not. I'm trying to look for the name. It has a name, Ahab.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize that was her body. That was, I thought that was like a sentry bot that had been customized. Because I found...
So I think it is her tank tread body with like other stuff on top.
Oh, okay.
So it's its own customized thing, but I do think that because it's on the tank treads, I do think that that's like part of it. I will say I didn't get a good look at it because as soon as I saw it start booting up, I smashed it apart with critical hits, like over and over again. So, and then it blew up and like destroyed my power armor. So, I didn't get the best look. Perhaps I'm wrong on this one, but yeah, I thought that was cool. That like, this big. It's called Ahab. That's too.
I found a terminal entry where one of the raiders is talking about making it. And they like went to a place, they were looking for parts in some other place, and they got attacked by a Deathclaw, and they lost some people, but they ended up killing the Deathclaw, and they took the skull, and they have put the Deathclaw skull on Ahab, so he looks awesome. Like, you walk in, it's kind of like this, it's in a former, like, military hangar, and so, Jezebel is in a robo-brain canister, like, stuck to a thing in front of it, but up and behind her, Ahab is, like, docked, and just looks cool. And yeah, he did activate for me, I think after I took Jezebel off her, like, platform or something, he, like, activated, and I ended up blowing him up with mini nukes.
Yeah, he's on this, like, altar of death. There's, like, all these robot skulls and shit all around. Yeah, I think Ahab is rad. And yeah, so Jezebel is funny because it's a robo-brain you can talk to, and she's like rude as shit, and she's so rude you can be like, why are you so mean to me? And she'll be like, I just tell the truth. I'm not mean. I'm just a robot. I can't have an opinion. It's really funny that she's like obviously purposefully mean, and when you address it, she just is like, I can't be mean. Yeah. I'm just a robot.
Yeah, there's a holotape that I found where she's being interrogated by one of the Rust Devils, and it's the same type of thing, and it's also, and I don't know if this is like how I'm supposed to parse this, because it could be like a slipped gear in the writing process or something, but she says to him that she cannot, or she says to either the Rust Devil who interrogates her or to you specifically that she cannot lie, but if you listen to this holotape and also have a conversation with her, she clearly lies to you about something. I don't remember what, but it's one of those things where basically she's nutso. Like, it turns out the reason these robots are killing everyone is because of her. Because she was programmed to help people, and she did the math, and she realized that it is much more efficient to help people by just killing them and putting them out of their misery. And so that is what is up with all these robot attacks.
Yeah, so all of these robots, and she says, now I don't know how, like, we've gotten a broad and general sketch of the Mechanist.
Mm-hmm.
our enemy here, Ada knows about the Mechanist, and we're hunting for the Mechanist. I don't know if we've said that yet so far. But
you hear it on the, they're like iBots that broadcast Mechanist propaganda that we haven't mentioned.
I am the Mechanist, all that stuff. But here's where you really get it, where it's like the Mechanist is in, their lair somewhere. And Jezebel's basically this kind of like forward operator who's just operating on good old-fashioned robot logic,
Mm-hmm.
What more do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And so the Mechanist is like not on the ground leading everybody, but just kind of emanating from somewhere. But Jezebel will only tell you, because you get the like GPS locator for the Mechanist, and it also needs, like, in order to get into the Mechanist's lair, the only way to get in is to, like, use a security code, basically. And Jezebel has it, but only, she'll only give it to you if you make her a body.
Mm-hmm.
And so you gotta engage with the system to some extent. What'd you do? How'd you make Jezebel a body?
Oh, I think I just gave her, like, a Protectron body, and I gave her, like, a faceplate or a visor.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. I just gave her, like, I pulled whatever I had in my stash, and I'm like, there you go, have a body.
I got wild with it. Okay. Because I thought, okay, she's been murdering all over the world. She's wandering around doing murders, doing robot law. I don't want her doing that anymore. I don't want this robo-brain doing this stuff to me. So I built her a body that would prevent her from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It is I think, Protectron torso with special armor that's for, I think, like, it's like dock workers or something. It doesn't say that, but it's like storage people. And so the idea is that armor, like, increases your carrying capacity.
Uh-huh.
And so it's these, like, giant you know what? Hold on. I'll cut this down in the edit. I'm just going to show it to you.
Okay.
So I went and pulled the image for you, and this is what I gave Jezebel. And I, of course, named her body Tonk's Child, a baby robot.
Mm-hmm.
And it called her that for the rest of the game. Because I named her body Tonk's Child, a baby robot. But it is factory armor for the Protectron as a torso. So it's this big, bulky looking, like, baby bassinet.
Uh-huh.
And then I put the robo brain on top. No arms, no legs, and just a heavily armored thruster. So it's just Jezebel floating around in this giant baby bassinet I've created, like, insulting people as she flies by. This is the best thing that's happened in Fallout 4 so far. I got more joy out of the 20 minutes I spent grinding materials in order to make this stupid-looking thing than I've gotten out of anything else here.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah.
It's fun. It's good. And she's just like, obviously people see footage right now, but she just, like, floats around, having a grand old time. But I didn't want her to have arms and legs. You know what I mean? I didn't want her to be able to kick. I didn't want her to be able to do any of that stuff. But so she said she would give us the deets, and she gave me the deets. Presumably she did that too. Also, at this point, I received an iBot helmet from someone. A little throwback.
Just someone.
Yeah, like a corpse that I found.
Yeah.
That's unrelated to me in some way.
Uh-huh.
And I was wearing that on top of my power armor. And that is also kind of the closest at this point that we've gotten to, like, the silliness of some of the outfit, capabilities of the previous games.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, Eleanor was wearing, power armor and, like, a silly hat.
Oh, yeah.
I felt close. But, yeah. So we then went to the Mechanist's lair. Now, do you remember the Mechanist?
Yeah, I remembered the Mechanist, and I remembered, I assume, many people who played this game, when the second they heard one of those iBots start shouting about the Mechanist, they were like, oh, the Mechanist! And so, I don't know how you took this, but I was like, the Mechanist isn't real. The Mechanist is a comic book character, so there's going to be some shenanigans at the end of this.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you're referring to the fact that, who was the ant person?
The Ant Agonizer.
That's right. So there's the quest that we did way back in Fallout 3 somewhere, where there's a town that is in combat between the Mechanist, someone who controls robots and sends them to fight like Pokemon, and the Antagonizer, who does the same thing, but with ants. And I believe we sided with the Mechanist. I sided with the Mechanist in that conflict. And so I was like, ooh, are they related? Are they the same? But as you're also pointing out, the Mechanist is like part of the Silver Shroud and Grognek the Barbarian's crew.
Right, and that's those characters, both the antagonizer... Well, actually, I think it was just the Mechanist. I think the antagonizer was organic or whatever, but that was also New Culture. But yeah, it turned out that these are both, like, weirdos in costumes, basically.
Right, yeah. And so, yeah, so you're like, oh, the Mechanist isn't real, and we met the Mechanist previously in a different lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't really know one way or the other. I was like, what could be? Because they keep talking. I thought, going into this final dungeon, and it is a dungeon.
Uh-huh.
Like it's maybe the biggest one we've done so far.
Yeah.
I thought for sure it was going to be a Robo Brain.
That was kind of where I was leaning. I was suspecting it was going to be something like an automated like amusement park attraction or something.
Right. Yes, right. Just some sort of pre-war thing that's just going along, doing its life. But you go through the dungeon, and it's pretty interesting. I think, it's some pretty cool set pieces along the way. You're in the dungeon itself is in the Robco Sales and Service Center,
mm-hmm.
which is funny. So it's like, at least it is presented as like, this is not a robot manufactory. Right. This is a place where you go and get help with your robots, and it's a place where they get diagnosed, and where, you deal with Robco as a company, Robco, of course, being a robot creator that's in all these games so far. But the further, and you do them in segments, and you have to bring Ada along with you to like zoom you into the next little area, and those are pretty cool. I like these, these gateways that open or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty neat.
Yeah, Robot Street Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it'll be like a door within a door within a door within a door.
Mm-hmm.
That happens a couple times. But then you get down into the bottom. Did you find the stuff cool? Like the storytelling of the dungeon? Did you think it was cool?
I thought it was the environments were neat. Some of the things were kind of odd because, as you say, it starts out at the sales facility. And I was reading the terminals here, and one of the things that you learn, there's like a little story here, which is that this was a kind of launch. This particular sales facility was kind of a launch of the like new fully automated Robco system, which of course is also something that I'm noticing because I know the automated work stuff plays a lot of I don't know, does a lot of stuff, I guess, in the background of Fallout 76. I know that was a conversation people were having. Mm-hmm. So there's this whole thing about how this sales facility was automated except for one guy who was the boss. And he had, I think, worked in one of the factories, and he hated it. And he felt like it was more of a pun. It was presented to him as like a reward for his faithful service to the company, but it ends up just being him sitting behind his desk in a building surrounded by robots all day, and it is driving him nuts. Sad for him. Then he dies in a nuclear war, so I guess it washes out. Then below that, in kind of the factory part, and then you get the sense that this was like a partly like hidden factory or something. It
was like a hidden evil research facility making robo-brains.
Right. Well, I found some more terminals, and there's a little story that goes on down here where a guy who is, I guess, stationed to watch what I think is like one of the power reactors or something. He's got, his like little office over here in the corner. He feels really lonely. So he he puts in a cigarette vending machine in order to get people to come by and buy cigarettes, and in particular, all the young women who work here. So he gets a chance to like mac on all these ladies when they come to get their cigarettes out of the vending machine. And then there's another guy who works down here who wants to harsh his buzz, and so he's like put in a complaint with HR about all of the people congregating by the cigarette vending machine or whatever. And then you can find his terminal, and he's just like, "This is just a code violation. I'm not jealous." I'm not jealous at all of all those girls who are going over there to smoke cigarettes. It's just a code violation. Unprofessional.
You can't be coming up the hallway.
And then
that's funny. That's really funny.
And then
that might be better than anything else that's happened in this game too.
Like it is. It's like it's so deeply personal for the guy who put in the vending machine, and the other guy is just like, I don't like all this smoke. And then, like, below that is the real nightmare, where you find out that this place was where they were inventing the robo-brains.
And they were mind-wiping people and shit.
Yeah, and this confused me, because I was like, didn't we already see how the robo-brains got made? Wasn't that Point Lookout back in Fallout 3?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that the entire deal behind what was going on underneath that lighthouse? And so I had to go...
I think he was like an investor in that company, right?
I had to go back and...
Like
I had to go back and read to figure out exactly what was happening there. But what they were doing is they were taking the RoboBrain process, which we see get invented here, basically, through, the text logs. They were trying to improve on that. So this was like an that was iterating on the brain extraction process, essentially, because as we see here, where it all kind of like, really got going, it was very messy and riddled with failure.
Is House a RoboBrain?
No, he's still alive, technically. That's the whole, like, he's got like a body and everything.
That's right. I forgot about that. The golf club thing.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. Never mind. But yeah, did you read all those, like, logs of, like, the people who were being killed for the RoboBrains?
Oh, yeah. Like, so they're, like, you find out that they're, like, taking prisoners and they're, like, sending them to this facility. And it's people who are, some of them are, like, I think one person is mentioned as being like an arsonist or something, but then other people have just like political marks against them. Real dark, horrifying stuff. And you can find like the logs, like transcripts of when they're activating these brains after they've extracted them. And there are some of them are people who are like, what have you done to me? Where are my arms? I'm going to kill you, blah, 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 blah. And then they're like, that one's not going to work. And then there's one who I think we're maybe supposed to understand is possibly Jezebel, who is like still saying, I'm going to like kill you, basically, but is very like calm and rational about it. And they're like, there we go. That's one to send into production.
Yeah, that checks out. It seems right to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like got to mind wipe them and all kinds of stuff. This is, to me, I don't know. Maybe it's just like a really well done quest, but like everything going on here is like, this is just good old fashioned Fallout stuff.
Yeah. It's got like the sort of like everything here has kind of like the color and texture that I felt like was missing in the main game and in so many places, where it's like, here's like a sketch of a place, a sketch of an idea of what could have happened here or what this environment was. And here it's like focused and interesting, and it's like stuff is going on.
Well, it also has that Fallout 2 thing, which is like all kinds of weird and wacky and zany stuff has happened. Mm-hmm. But at the bottom, there's like ethnic cleansing and experimentation on prisoners there, right? Like,
yeah,
we cannot forget that the end of Fallout 2 is blowing up a platform where Nazis, were trying to destroy everyone in the world who was not genetically pure. You know what I mean? With a ersatz Richard Nixon as their leader.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there was a kind of almost goofy political rawness to that. That just like Bethesda has to obliterate out of the whole thing to make it like a more mass cultural object. I understand why that's happening. You couldn't produce like Ronald Reagan. Instead, what they've had to do in like the post Bethesda takeover is like the biggest characters of intrigue and evil are like the big robber baron capitalists, broadly, or whatever, right? And so I get like why that's the case, or just the Enclave again. Right. Let's not forget about the Enclave. And Fallout 4 is just kind of missing that, right? There's like, the Brotherhood, which are like airship fascists, but you might like the airship fascists, or the apartheid underground people, right? But you might like the apartheid underground people, so like they can't be too bad, because you got to be able to align with them. Or that guy in a hat with a laser rifle who you can enjoy, right? Who has nothing to do with any of it.
Can I tell a story about him real quick?
Yeah, please.
I was doing something in Sanctuary Hills where he's still walking around. And I've got, I said I haven't touched a lot on the settlements and stuff, but I did give them some like fortifications and things. Because I think at one point, like, some raiders did come up there and try to kill them or something. Anyway, I realized he was unassigned as I was walking around there, and I had a little, like, garrison thing that I'd put up specifically for him, or like a little, cover wall. And I went up and I was like, oh man, I should just assign him to be right here so he can guard this entrance to Sanctuary Hills. So I go over to talk to him. And he asks me what he had said at the very beginning of the game, where he's like, well, are you going to take charge of the Minutemen and restore the Commonwealth? And I was like, oh, no. And so then, like, the conversation just ends. I cannot assign him to any duty in Sanctuary Hills until I accept the responsibility of taking over the Minutemen, which I still have not done.
Look, you don't want the job.
Right?
He can't bully you into taking the job you don't want. Don't let him do it. That's very funny. But all of that, right? Especially that right there, right? Like, what you just described is so far away from like a Fallout 2-y kind of thing, right? And so even in its goofiest, which it is extremely goofy in Fallout 2, at least like there are these moments of like an idea of politics. And I guess what's so fascinating is like to get all the way here to Fallout 4 and be like, did Fallout change? Like, is Fallout different? And really the thing that, for me, across the long arc of Too Much Future is like, obviously it's changed, and obviously, as you've pointed out many times, Bethesda does this thing where it asserts a thing and then like writes it backward into history of Fallout, right? And connects all these other like dots in order to make the Bethesda canonical statement resonate or whatever. It's like some sort of webcomic I've read. I don't know. It's fascinating how this works. But the thing that like unites this one quest and the Fallout 2 thing, it's not that these games have a different relationship to nuclear weapons or whatever, right? You blew up that platform all the way back. To me, it really is like at the end of the rainbow of the exercise of power. You know what I mean? Like when one exercises power in Fallout 1 and 2, there are repercussions for exercising power. And in the world that, before the bombs fell, power is not aligned really with social good. It is interested in social progress, big quotation marks here. It is interested in development. It is interested in extraction. But it is not interested in making a more just world. And this, this like little dungeon here, the whole narrative of it is walking through that. It's like a bunch of people doing their jobs and living their lives or whatever, but at the end of the rainbow of the exercise of power, of making these robots that will make the world better, more defendable, will defeat the Chinese, in the Fallout universe, all that stuff, it's about executing prisoners and stealing their brains. You know what I mean? This kind of science fiction horror that's at the bottom there. And just the rest of Fallout 4 doesn't really feel like it can even do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, it does. It gets really dark. It really goes for it here, because you don't just find out that this is happening, like, and it's not just like you get these transcripts of the experiments themselves. You find out that there's like one doctor who, when he finds out that they are experimenting on prisoners, he objects to it, and he gets like he tells one of the other scientists, and he's like, "Hey, can we do something about this?" And then that guy rats him out, and that guy gets ejected from the program, and it's like implied maybe black-sided or something. And then there's eventually you get to this one where I think there's like a division in staff in here. There's like the scientists, and then maybe people who are actually like still maintaining the robot factory upstairs or something.
Yeah, I think it seems like there's a it's kind of the stand style, right? So there's like the legit operation up top and then the secret operation down below.
Right. And so there's a bit where the scientists are like, you find out all this stuff, like the scientists are like daring each other to like drink the fluid that the brains are suspended in, or like someone has a birthday and they play a prank where they like take one of the brains and they frost it as a cake and feed it to the guy, and he's like, "Bleh," and they're like, "Ah ha ha, that's so funny." But then there's like these other staff there who are like, what's wrong with you people? Like, and the person who, it's from the point of view, these little journals of the person who was in on the prank. And so they're like, I don't understand why they won't just lighten up.
Jeez.
Right?
My God.
Like, they just go all in on kind of the callousness of these scientists.
Wow. Yeah, how is this more of a hard-hitting, like, critique of, like, science, exclamation point, than the Institute itself.
Right.
I don't know. Seems interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, you get through all of this, and then you meet the Mechanist.
This is a is there anything else like this in the game?
Oh, what do you mean like this? Because this
like
actually...
a fully scripted boss fight?
So, this is why I was asking. This didn't happen for me.
What did you do?
When I was coming in on the first level, there's like a sort of like a security like bulkhead or something you have to go through, and then there's like an airlock, and there's like an office on like that looks on like a sort of observation office that looks into the airlock, and you can find where a wall is collapsed, and you can get into that office. And you can read a bunch of stuff on the terminals in there, and one of the things that you learn is that there is an elevator in that office that takes you directly to like the central office downstairs, but it is out of commission because of a like security lockdown or something, and that security lockdown can only be negated by hearing three people in the facility like give like their voices, right? We've seen versions of this before, I think, from Fallout 3 to now, where you have to collect holotapes that people have left around and then play them for the thing, and then it like recognizes the voice off the holotape, and then you get to do whatever. So throughout all of this, I've been looking for these holotapes, and I've picked them up. So then I get to a certain point, and then I backtrack to the beginning of the dungeon. I do this little puzzle, I activate the elevator, I get into the elevator, I go straight to the bottom, and I walk up to the Mechanist and surprise them.
Oh, that's super cool. I found that elevator, but I did not figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
That's neat.
Yep. So I
wish I'd done that, because going through this whole dungeon, not great.
Oh, yeah. Well, you still have to go through most of the dungeon, is the thing.
Okay.
Right? Like, the last tape you need is in that lab with all the brains and everything. So that's when
gotcha.
So that's when I turned around and walked back. So I didn't know how much actually was after this. I knew there was probably going to be some sort of boss fight, which you say is scripted?
It is it's a kind of a scripted sequence. It's in waves, because it's really funny, because the Mechanist is like, basically is like, hey, did you know you were the villain the whole time? Because the Mechanist's whole thing is like, you are the scourge. You're destroying all my robots who are only out there in the world to help people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can be like, they're killing everyone all the time. And the Mechanist is like, you're making that up. And is like, get them robots. And so like a wave or two of robots like come in, and you got to beat them up. And then the Mechanist is like, and maybe there's like two waves or something. You got to fight them. Mm-hmm. And then the third wave or fourth wave, something like that, the Mechanist says, listen, you'll never be able to defeat me. I will wear you down because I am the Mechanist, blah, blah, blah. And, my robots are infinite because the Mechanist is in a robot factory,
mm-hmm.
And this is kind of like a big control room, factory room.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this like jokey thing that happens where it's like that, the facility is like, power shutting down, and the Mechanist is like, emergency power. So like the rest of the fight is still wave after wave, but it's wave after wave, wave after wave as the power is shutting down and like coming back on and going back down, and eventually it's like, the Mechanist is like, my finest robots yet, and the robots are like, literally they're named, I think, Junk Robot or Scrap Robot or something, and they are incomplete, and they have no weapons, and they have like one hit point, and you're just like, you're smashing them apart, and then it eventually shuts down automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mechanist comes out and speaks to you, and that's probably the final thing is similar to what you're about to experience.
Yeah. I snuck up on the Mechanist from behind in like this like weird control room where there's a bunch of little robo brains, like all.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love it. They're like mounted on like little. They're like tap tap tap. They've got like. I love. This is what I love about the Fallout like aesthetic or whatever, right? Is that we've extracted the human brain, put it into a robot, and then given that robot arms so it can tap really fast on a keyboard.
Yeah.
Right.
Little tiny arms.
So I come up behind the Mechanist and start talking to them. And it's a similar kind of conversation to you, except one thing in my favor is that Eleanor is still wearing the Silver Shroud armor. So she can speak as the Shroud from this point forward, and of course, that is what I am doing. And so I'm like, turn around, evildoer! And we have this whole similar conversation. It's like, your robots are killing everyone! That's not true, etc., etc. But everything is in character as the Shroud, and then eventually, like, the Mechanist is like, oh, the Shroud is right. I can't, like, face up to this. And then pulls off the mask and reveals that it is a young woman named Isabel Cruz. And there's been some sort, like, there's like a vocoder or like voice changing module in the mask that makes it sound like a masculine voice.
This is where it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
We're back to Fallout 4 at the end of this thing. Because she's like, gee willikers, I thought I had the logic down right, but I didn't have the logic down right. My robots are killing people. Please forgive me.
Right. And it's just like, she's just some person who wandered in to this facility and like really liked the Mechanist and was like, I will become the Mechanist.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like,
yeah, that's it. Like, did you get like a backstory of why she chose the Mechanist?
Other than she appears to like the Mechanist. One of the things that you can find actually before you sneak up on her is you can find her bedroom, and she has like posters in her bedroom of like the Mechanist. And it's like, obviously, I think some of them are like, pre-war posters, but then some of them are clearly like her fan art.
Yeah, I did see she has like a self-made comic book.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I just thought there'd be a thing. I thought maybe this would be like the daughter of the Mechanist from the other game, or
yeah,
No,
it's just some woman,
just some lady. And did you kill her?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Felt uncool to do. Lo and behold, this is you can live here now. Did you know that?
Wow.
Yep.
And so yeah, that was a really weak ending to what was a strange DLC for me, because at the second I realized, like, oh, this is all just about introducing more crafting stuff. Bleh. But then also like, the crafting stuff actually does look kind of cool, and it's got some character and, I don't know, neat visuals and so on and so forth. It's interesting to see, as we've talked about at length at this point, like, how much of the stuff that we like about Fallout, like, I don't know how long it has been since we have had a discussion where I actually got to do something different. Right? Like, the whole thing about, like, taking the elevator down and shortcutting the end of the dungeon, like, that was the sort of thing that happened all the time in Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, between our respective playthroughs. And then it just sort of falls out, and then suddenly it's back here.
It's good.
Yeah.
I like this DLC.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next one. What's the next one called? Do you know?
The next one is called Far Harbor, and I actually have started it because I was looking over like the stuff about it, and I was like, oh, this one seems like it's actually going to be pretty lengthy compared to.
Well,
to this
yeah,
one.
You got to complete that Nick Valentine quest you started.
No, actually, I'll have more to say about maybe how that did or didn't work out whenever we're back. But I've started it, and it's interesting.
Does this take place in Maryland? Oh,
no.
Off the coast of Maine?
Yes. Uh-huh. It's a strange, small island off the coast of Maine.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
What if, big swing, right? Everything is narrated in the third person in the entirety of the DLC by a genteel Mainer man who lives on the island.
I will neither confirm nor deny this.
Oh my God! Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I'm excited about it. I'm scrolling down here through the wiki page. I want to see like how many quests there are. Oh, it looks like a lot.
Yeah, it's I was wondering if I could like knock out both of these in a single day, and I decided not to with this one because from what I can tell, just at a glance, is like there are actual like factions and stuff and like choices to be made here. This one seems like
Holy
more
shit.
of a story DLC. I mean, actually, having started playing it, I can say this one is more of a story DLC than even Automatron. I mean, not even Automatron, because there was a very simple story there.
Yeah. And then the last one is Nuka-Cola World.
Mm-hmm.
Nuka World. Can't get the cola in there. So I'm curious about Nuka World. Is it also? I'm going to scroll down and look and see how many quests it has attached to it. It doesn't look like that many. That's fascinating. So really, they released one huge, really beefy thing, and then two fairly delimited. This one's got a fair number, I guess, too. Yeah. So they did Automatron, whatever it is we just played, which is like one quest and like the robot building stuff, and then two really beefy, like these almost look like what do you call it? The Oblivion DLC.
Yeah.
With Shaba Hadron. What's his name?
Sheogorath, the Shivering Isles.
Is his name Sheogorath?
I thought so. Maybe I'm mixing up two of
them. Yeah, he is. I thought Sheogorath was like the guy in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so it seems like that kind of deal.
Yeah, and there's also, because I guess probably people will talk about this, we don't mention it, there were other, like, add-ons that were straight up just stuff that goes into your settlement building, whatever, and then there's one that has a quote-unquote plot to it that we haven't talked about playing it, because the plot is literally like, there's a vault here, there's a distress call from the vault, go to the vault, you're in charge of the vault now, and now you get to craft in the vault.
Oh. I want to craft in the vault. I want to do it. Who am I thinking of from Marvel vs. Capcom 2?
I don't know.
Who am I thinking of? Shumagorath. There we go. Phew. Shumagorath belongs to the Great Old Ones, a race of ancient eldritch beings who predate Earth. Is a recurring antagonist of the superhero Doctor Strange.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. I knew what I was talking about. All right, cool. We'll be back in 2 weeks with this titanic, mammoth, Far Harbor DLC. Thanks so much for checking this out. Hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed listening to the thing. Hit the like button on this video if you're watching on YouTube. You can always go to patreon.com/rangedtouch to get access to this as a podcast feed, and it's fun. It's fun to do that. So the link to all those things are down in the description below. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
Until then, war never changes, but Fallout sure does.
Everything changes.